The courtroom officer, Derek Haynes, stood in open court, pointed straight at me, and called me a liar. What he didn't know was that I was wearing a wire. Not for that hearing. That recording had already been secured in a federal vault inside the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C. Fully time-stamped and authenticated. I wore the transmitter out of instinct. 14 months undercover changes you. After a while, the cold metal against your ribs feels as ordinary as your own heartbeat. Haynes stood at the witness stand in his pressed uniform, broad shoulders squared with confidence, and accused me of being a known drug associate who had threatened a police officer. His finger aimed directly at me in the third row of the gallery. The courtroom shifted uneasily. Judge Patricia Holloway lowered her reading glasses and looked toward me. I stayed completely still, hands folded calmly in my lap, because I had been waiting for that exact moment for more than a year. But to understand how we arrived there, you need the full story. My name is Maya Collins. I'm a special agent with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit out of Baltimore. I'm 34 years old, raised in West Baltimore in a small row house only a few blocks from where Freddie Gay was arrested years ago. I know what it feels like to see a police cruiser slow beside you while walking home from school. I know what it means to be judged guilty before anyone even speaks to you. That experience didn't make me hate the law. It made me determined to work inside it. I joined the FBI at 26 after graduating from Howard Law and spending 2 years as an assistant public defender. During those years, I saw how the gears of the justice system crushed the wrong people over and over again. I became good at undercover work because I understood something many agents had to be taught. People usually see only what they expect to see. A black woman living alone in a neighborhood like Riverside Park. Officer Haynes's patrol zone was invisible to men like him. Not invisible in the literal sense. More like dismissed. Categorized. Written off before speaking. And nobody ever suspects the target is actually the hunter. The assignment reached me on a rainy Tuesday in October, 14 months before the courtroom hearing. My supervisor, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Dana Reyes, slid a thick manila folder across the conference table. "We think he's dirty," she said. "Been dirty for years." Inside the file was Officer Derek Haynes. Badge number 4471. 9-year veteran of the Riverside Park Precinct. Commended for valor in 2019. Square jaw. Close-cut blonde hair. The kind of officer people trusted on site. The complaints told a different story. Illegal searches. Excessive force. Witness intimidation. Fabricated narcotics charges. Every complaint closed without action. Every complainant black or Latino. Every case buried quietly. "What's my role?" I asked. "Yourself," Dana replied. "You move into the neighborhood, blend in, and watch how he operates." So I rented a small apartment on Croton Street. The place smelled like old cigarettes hidden beneath fresh paint. The radiator banged through the night like someone pounding on pipes from another floor. My neighbors included an elderly Haitian woman named Claudette, who grew herbs outside her fire escape, and a young couple named Marcus and Deshawn who fought loudly and loved each other just as loudly. I settled in. I bought groceries from the same corner store. Learned Haynes's patrol routes. Memorized his schedule. Jogged past his cruiser every morning. And for weeks, he barely noticed me. The first time he spoke to me was outside the laundromat. I was carrying a blue mesh bag full of warm clothes when his cruiser rolled slowly beside me. "Hey," he called. Not friendly. Testing. I glanced over calmly. "Evening. You new around here?" His eyes scanned me carefully, assessing, categorizing. "Few weeks," I answered. After a long silence, he finally said, "Stay out of trouble." Then he drove away. That night, hidden inside the lining of my laundry bag, a recorder captured every word. For simple words. And they told me everything. Over the next 2 months, I watched Derek Haynes work. I watched him stop young men for broken taillights that didn't exist. Watched him search cars without cause. Watched fear spread through entire blocks whenever his cruiser appeared. Then I saw him plant evidence. The first time, I couldn't prove it. The second time, I could. It happened on a freezing Sunday afternoon. A man named Darnell Washington was walking home from church wearing his best coat. 42 years old. Warehouse worker. No criminal record. Haynes stopped him at the corner of Croton and 5th. From my apartment window, through a hidden camera transmitting live to the FBI monitoring team, I watched Haynes reach into his own jacket pocket before pretending to discover narcotics on Darnell during the search. Every second was recorded. Agent Ray Torres called me immediately. Maya, he said, tell me you got that. Every frame. That's our case. But I told him no. Not yet. Because men like Haynes never worked alone. There was always another officer signing paperwork without questions. Always a supervisor approving arrests without review. Always someone higher protecting the entire machine. And I wanted the whole structure. 3 more months passed. During that time, Public Defender Kesha Brooks fought Darnell's case without realizing the anonymous witness helping her was an FBI agent living under a cover identity. Meanwhile, I traced the corruption upward. Officer Carl Peretti co-signed Haynes's reports. Sergeant Bud Calloway approved every fabricated arrest.
And Captain Warren Ellis quietly buried internal investigations before they ever gained traction. The corruption climbed higher than we expected. Then Haynes started watching me back. He drove past my building repeatedly, sat outside for long stretches, asked questions about me around the neighborhood. One morning, he knocked directly on my apartment door. When I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there with Officer Peretti behind him, my pulse hit hard once, then steadied. Routine follow-up, Haynes said smoothly after I opened the door. We've had complaints about possible drug activity. I leaned casually against the doorway. I'm happy to answer questions, I said, but I'd like specifics before allowing anyone inside. Something changed in his eyes right then. Most people either became submissive or defensive around him. I became careful, controlled, legally precise. And that unsettled him. He walked away smiling, but I knew he suspected something. That same afternoon, one of our confidential sources warned me Haynes had begun showing my picture around the precinct. Someone inside the department had tipped him off that federal investigators were interested in Riverside Park. The leak was higher up than we realized. Dana wanted extraction immediately. I refused, because Darnell Washington's trial was only weeks away. And if Haynes lied under oath in federal court, we could bury the entire operation permanently. So I stayed. The next 2 weeks felt endless. Haynes circled constantly, trying to pressure me into making a mistake. Then he escalated. At 2 a.m, for days before trial, he filed a false report claiming an informant had accused me of possessing narcotics and threatening an officer. At dawn, officers arrived at my apartment with a search warrant. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. But the false report became evidence too. The morning of Darnell's trial, I entered the courthouse dressed like an ordinary civilian and sat quietly in the 3rd row. Haynes took the stand looking calm, confident, untouchable. Then he lied. He lied about the stop, lied about the search, lied about Darnell resisting. Kesha Brooks cross-examined him carefully, pushing at inconsistencies. Haynes never cracked. Then she asked one question. Officer Haynes, are you aware of any federal investigation into your conduct in Riverside Park? Immediate objection. Sustained. But the damage was done. Haynes looked directly at me in the gallery. Really looked. And something in his expression shifted. Then he pointed straight at me. Your Honor, he said loudly, that woman is a known associate of the defendant. She's been conducting surveillance in my precinct. I've filed reports documenting threats against officers. Every head turned toward me. Judge Holloway stared over her glasses. The jury looked confused. And I sat perfectly still. Because at that exact moment, the courtroom doors opened. Agent Ray Torres entered first. Behind him came 2 FBI agents in dark suits. And behind them walked Dana Reyes carrying a sealed federal indictment. Ray approached the bench, displayed his credentials, and said clearly, Your Honor, the Department of Justice requests permission to address the court. The silence afterward felt unreal. Dana handed Judge Holloway the indictment packet. The judge read silently, then looked at me. Agent Collins, she said carefully, is this accurate? I stood slowly, reached into my jacket, placed my FBI badge on the railing. Special Agent Maya Collins, FBI Public Corruption Unit, I said calmly. Yes, Your Honor. The room emptied of sound. Haynes went pale. I watched certainty collapse inside him in real time. Watched a man who had spent years protected by power finally realize that protection was gone. I looked directly at him. You testified under oath that I was a criminal associate and that you filed reports documenting my illegal conduct, I said. I paused. That testimony is now count 17 in the federal indictment filed this morning against you, Officer Peretti, Sergeant Calloway, and Captain Ellis. Another pause. You wrote that charge yourself. Haynes gripped the witness stand like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Darnell Washington was acquitted later that afternoon. Outside the courthouse, Kesha Brooks stared at me after learning who I really was. You could have told me, she said. I couldn't, I answered. After a long silence, she asked quietly, is he going to prison? Yes. All of them? Yes. She nodded once. Good. The months afterward changed everything. Haynes was indicted on 17 federal charges including civil rights violations, evidence tampering, obstruction, and perjury. Sergeant Calloway cooperated. Captain Ellis was arrested for obstruction and conspiracy after evidence proved he had helped shield Haynes for years. 14 wrongful arrest victims later received settlements from the city. Darnell Washington received the largest. Not because money repairs injustice, but because acknowledgement matters. I moved out of the Croton Street apartment in April. Before leaving, Mr. Dupree, the elderly man who had spent 40 years documenting misconduct in handwritten journals, held both my hands silently in the hallway. His notebooks became federal evidence. Claudette pressed a small jar of dried herbs into my palm. For protection, she said. I told her I thought I was safe now. She smiled sadly. Protection isn't only for danger, she replied. It's for survival. I kept the jar. Months later, after sentencing, my father called me. You all right? He asked. Yeah. You did something good, didn't you? I thought about Darnell's daughter. About 84 pages of handwritten truth finally being believed. About staying inside a broken machine long enough to force it to work correctly. I did something that needed doing, I told him. He was quiet for a moment. Same thing, he said. That night, in a new city with a new assignment waiting, I placed Claudette's jar beside the window and opened the next case file. Because protection isn't what keeps danger away. It's what keeps you from losing yourself while standing inside it.